Hey guys, welcome back to the next part of this series. Today we're going to continue with the snake oil lamp, and we're going to be modeling and sculpting a little bit because we're actually almost there in regards to the modeling department. So some of you guys were asking about whether we were going to unwrap and texture this thing. Of course we're going to unwrap and texture this thing. The idea is to get a render very similar to what we have right here. So hopefully we'll be able to get there. Now, I was analyzing the image yesterday to think how to do this kind of things, and I realized that it's very probable that this guy actually modeled this in 3D because it shows a couple of things that are very easy to get in 3D and a little bit difficult to perfectly nail on concept art. So I think he actually did a base mesh like in ZBrush or something, and then he painted over it. So we're gonna translate that, which is actually something that it's very, very common. So we're gonna translate that into a full functional asset. So let's go with this guys right here, like this valve things that we have. And this one seems to be horizontal. You can see that the straight line right there tells us that there's some sort of like valve or something that things go into. Then this is it's going in towards us, and then there's like a little knob or something over here. So yeah, let's see how this goes. I'm gonna start with this one right here, with the one that's facing towards us. And if we take a look at the concept, let's get rid of the floor. If we take a look at the concept, you're gonna see that's a half sphere. It's like a half sphere here, and then it has like this little indentations there. Now, those indentations, there's different ways in which we could do them. Extrusion, of course, is one of those, and the other one would be with the normal map. So since this is supposed to be a high poly cinematic approach, I am actually going to do it traditionally. So I can see that it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm thinking this is probably like a 16-sided element. However, each of these things is divided by 3. So if we multiply 16 by 3, we get a 54. So we're going to do a 54-sided sphere, which is going to be really, really dense, but it's going to allow us to simplify the amount of work that we're going to do that. And again, remember, when we're doing cinematic things, poly count is, of course, something that you need to think about, but it shouldn't be the thing that worries you the most. So I don't need as many divisions on the height, so I'm going to keep the height at 20. I'm going to delete half of it, half of the sphere. So we only have this thing right here. As you can see, it's not that much. I mean, it is quite a bit of geometry, but it's not that much. And now, that's the half sphere. We need to extrude this. So extrude, Control E to extrude, and just move this thing down. And that gets us this things right there. Now, we know that this thing is symmetrical, right? So one thing that I would strongly recommend is try to be smart about how you model things. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to get one of this, like, sides of the thing. And then we're just going to duplicate it. No need to model and sculpt and select as many faces when we can make it super easy with just a single selection. So there we go. So we have this little thing right here, and the formula that we're going to be using later on is, of course, we're going to divide 360 by 54, which is the size. So 6.666666 is the element that we need here. So if we take a look at the concept again, we have a extrusion here in the center, and then an extrusion at the sides. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab this guy right here. Let's add one more line. And this guy and this guy, we're just going to extrude in. Like this. Now I'm going to bevel the edges, of course. So bevel. And we're going to do a small fraction, probably 2 seconds. So when we do this, we get this very sharp line. It seems like I selected more edges than I should. This one right there. There we go. That should give me clean edges. There we go. Why are we getting... We shouldn't be getting like these things right here. So I'm just going to grab this 2 vertex, and I'm going to merge to center. And merge to center. So we get squares all around. And I'm just going to add another support edge there, and that's going to give us a nice straight line there. Of course, we're going to have to add the support edge, but I'm not going to add just yet, because one other thing that we need is, as you can see here, we need this like inner side here. So for that thing, I'm actually going to grab this guys. I'm going to extrude them, but I'm going to extrude them out. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a little bit of offset. So we created the negative space here. And to blend these things in, I am gonna select this edge and just collapse to center, and this edge and collapse to center. And then this edge, we're gonna just push it in a little bit so that it follows the form of the sphere, and we don't get as much distortion. These two guys as well. Let's get rid of that. We're gonna merge to center. Did we do that? Okay, just snap it there. So merge to center and merge to center. Yes, we're gonna have triangles. Triangles, remember, they're not a big deal as long as you know how to use them properly. And there we go. So it's gonna give us that very nice shape there. And of course, we're gonna use our insert edge loop here and here to keep it really, really straight, and probably one like here. And that's gonna give us that very nice effect. Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to the top view. I am gonna isolate this and move this point to the center. And I am gonna duplicate this, Control D, and rotate it. The formula was 6.666, so 6.66. It needs to be a little bit more, it seems. So it's about 20 degrees. It seems like 20 degrees will do the trick. And then Control D and do that again. So now this is 40 degrees. And since we don't want to do this every single time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide 360 by 20, which is, I'm really bad at those, like quick, 18. So I'm going to this guy, edit, duplicate the special, and I'm going to duplicate this as a copy. I'm going to rotate this 20 degrees on the y-axis, and we want 17 copies because we already have the first one, and hit apply. And as you can see, we completely duplicate the whole thing, and we get this thing. Now I'm just going to go here, and I'm going to say mesh, or actually I'm going to combine first. So combine, so that's a single object, and then I'm going to say edit mesh, merge. Now usually when we merge, we try to make the threshold very low. I'm going to make it a little bit higher this time around. So I'm going to say 0.1. No, 0.1 is too much. So 0.05 maybe. Nope. 0.015. No, it's way too much. Now let's keep it at 0.01. And then let's just manually close these things. I thought we were going to get this nicely, but let's take a look. Let's see how this looks. Yeah, it looks really nice. But yeah, we definitely need to close those. So I'm just going to grab those, and just to keep it simple, I'm just going to merge to center. And that's going to properly connect everything. We're still going to have the little like cut there, and we should have the pattern that we're going for. So again, I'm using the G key on my keyboard to repeat the last action. If I had calculated this a little bit better, we might not have to do it because vertex would have found their point, and they would have merged together properly, but that's fine. There you go. Yeah, that's it. We have this very nice little thing. Now we want to make this thing a little bit more square, which is of course something that we definitely need. I am going to use my cut tool, and I'm going to cut right there, and another one down here. So it's going to keep the shapes stronger because we're adding that support edge. And there we go. We have this first section, which is this one right here. Now for this, guys, I just need to count. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So it's a 16-sided cylinder. I'm just going to create here 16-sided cylinder. So just change this to 16 before we scale, of course. So 16, there we go. We're going to make it smaller. And I'm going to select each face, Control E to extrude, keep faces together off, and just push it out and give it a little bit of offset on the x-axis like this. So when we press number 3, as you can see, we get that same effect. Now we only need to harden it a little bit with a couple of support edges there and there, and that should be it. I think it's a little bit too, like, we can make it a little bit more extreme, so let's just push it out a little bit more. One thing I can do is I can do another extrusion just to give a support edge to all of the areas there. No, that's way too much. So now I'll just keep it like this. And then with our cut tool, it's just 1 and 1 to get that nice little shape. Grab this thing, make it smaller, and let's go. Now, as you can see, I'm actually modeling this thing as a separate piece, and then we're gonna orient it properly to the position. It's just way easier to do. Now, this one, you can see that it has way more. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So it's like 40 sides to the whole thing, which, again, if that's the concept, let's just do it. So create a new cylinder, change the options. What is going on here? Maya. Okay, Maya is freaking out, which happens sometimes. I mean, yeah, I'm just gonna pause this real quick. I'm just gonna save. And let me reset Maya. Okay, there we go. So I'm just gonna create a new cylinder. Change the options here to 40 divisions. Let's select both of these guys and isolate them so that we can work nicely. Make this smaller, of course. Thicker, thinner, and just move it to position. We're gonna grab all of the faces, Control E. Again, keep faces together off, a little bit of offset, and a little bit of thickness, so that when we press number 3, we get this kind of like serrated sort of effect. One support edge on the top and one support edge on the bottom, and there we go. That's it. That's all we need. Now, I do see that this thing is a little bit taller. So this is like a half sphere, and then this is way taller. So I don't want to modify the things that I already have. So I'm just going to grab all of these bricks right here and just bring them down. That's going to give me the height. Now, as well, let's check the distance right here. It's not that much. So we're going to grab this guy, just make it smaller in regards to the distance. And finally, we have this other piece, which is sitting on top of it. Now, we don't see if there's any sort of like connection, but I would imagine that there would be some sort of something there, right? Especially since I can see that this is a little bit thinner and it's kind of like pushing out. So I would expect to see like a cylinder, probably just like a simple cylinder like this. I think this adds a nice effect to the whole thing. And here's again one of the things that you can do with production. If we don't need the caps of the cylinder because we're never going to see them, and we don't want them to be using any sort of like texture, we can just delete them, and that's going to be fine, because all of this whole object is going to be combined as a single. We did the same thing on this sphere, remember? Like this sphere has no like faces on the backside, so we're not going to deform it, we're not going to break it, we're not going to destroy it, so we can't do it. Always check again with your productions. Some productions, depending on what kind of thing they're going to be doing with the element, might ask you to modify it in a different way, but usually back faces we can get rid of them so that they're not contaminating the scene. Combine everything here, delete history, freeze transformation, center pivot, and we're just gonna go here. And the cool thing is we actually already have the proper rotation of this guy. So we're gonna do something. This is from our rigging class, actually. We use it quite a lot. I'm gonna grab this guy and then this guy, and I'm gonna say rigging, constraint, parent constraint. So now this thing has jumped to the exact location where the other thing was, and we can scale it so that it matches the proper element, and the location or the orientation is matching the rest of the elements. So there we go. Now we don't need the constraint anymore. We're already positioned where we want. We don't need this thing anymore either, and it's just a matter of making sure that this thing looks and feels like it's right where it's supposed to be. Here we might need to do a little bit of manual adjustment to make sure that we're following the curve as nice as possible all throughout the little surface here. Let's get rid of discrete rotate. Let's just play around with this a little bit. I love when we can modify these things in this way, when things are a little bit more like handmade, because that little like off-axis thing or off-axis rotation is gonna be really good to get a good sense of not it's not perfection, right? We don't have a perfection here. So now on this side, I'm not really sure what there is. I'm imagining a sort of like heavy cap, and then like a tube that connects to the whole thing. So maybe that's where you would pour the oil in. and therefore this thing is going to be combined with the rest of the elements. And a lot of people might say, well, if we want this thing to be like really, really nice, wouldn't it be good to model it out of the thing here? And yes, that would be one way to do it. However, it is way more complicated to do it that way, and having a little bit of overlap is completely fine as long as you can hide it with like texture and stuff. So I'm just going to create a cylinder here. This thing is going to be just overlapping like this. And I'm gonna create a new cap. I'm actually gonna use just this one. Control D, make it bigger, and create the cap here. Let's go to our camera and see if we're matching it. Where's our camera? Did we delete the camera? No, here it is. Panels, look through selected. There we go. So yeah, that seems to be about right. Here, so it has a very similar effect. Now this one, as you can see, it's a little bit more squarish. So now I think we can do what we did before. I'm just going to Control E, keep faces together off, push this guy out, keep faces together off. There we go. And I'm going to do a quick extrusion just to add a support edge to the caps. That's going to keep them, it's going to give me this shape. Looks very weird right now, but as soon as we insert another edge loop like here and here, you're gonna see that the whole thing looks nicer, like an actual like cap that you would turn around, right? So yeah, that's working perfectly fine. And this one, it's just gonna stay right there. And again, we can simplify this. Now, if we want to have a shot where this thing actually like people unscrew it and you can see through it, let's do it. I think that's gonna be a good exercise. So I'm gonna select these two things, and I'm gonna delete the faces on this top side and on this bottom side, like this. And one thing we can do, again, if we want to really make sure this thing looks as nice as possible, is we can use booleans to cut a hole on the element. Now, the only problem with booleans is that they are quite aggressive, so I actually would advise against doing that for this specific prop, but I am gonna add just the thickness to this element right here. Let's do mesh display. Where is it? Modeling, mesh display, reverse. Let's bevel these things. And I would expect there to be some sort of like thread on the outside here, where the cap like screws onto. So I'm just gonna grab this. Oh, this. Or actually, let's do the first two first. Control E. A little bit of offset, and just push it in, and then do the same thing for this areas. Control E, a little bit of offset, and push it in, and that's gonna give me the sort of like thread that you would expect a little screw to have. Yeah, that looks good. And there we go. So again, once you see this rendered out, like people are not gonna notice that this thing is not combined with the rest of the element. Did we delete? Oh, we need to just, let's give it a little bit of a bevel down here. And as I mentioned, like, yes, we can delete here, but if I want to really create the hole, let's do the hole. So if I want to really create the hole, I need way more divisions, because if I try to just delete faces here, it's gonna be very bad. So I'm gonna go into mesh tools. Oh my god. I'm gonna go to mesh tools, go into insert edge loop, and I'm gonna select here multiple edge loops, and let's do like 5 or something, just to add a lot of lines here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna go into my top view, and I'm gonna go here, and then I am gonna use my cut tool on this thing right here to cut in a way that we kind of follow this section here of the element. So let's go there, and then from here, here. We'll have to go like about there, and then to like the middle of that thing there. Now this is symmetrical, so we can mirror it later on to make sure that things are looking as nice as possible. and that's it. So now we can go in here, select this faces, we just cut it, delete them, and now we're gonna have a hole, so people are gonna be able to look inside of the whole thing. Now to clean this up a little bit, because of course we need to clean it up, we need to use triangles, because again, the reason why we added more faces is because we needed them to work properly. Here, I mean, the problem with doing a mirror though is if we do a mirror, what's gonna happen is that this square is gonna get a line right here through the middle, and that's gonna break up the very nice like square effect or round effect that we have there. It's gonna look different. So here's where I might, again, it's a little bit more advanced, but I'm sure you guys can handle it. So I'm just gonna grab this edge right here. I'm gonna say edit mesh, detach. I'm gonna say mesh separate. So now we have two separate meshes, and we can do the mirror here and then just erase the thing. Now again, another thing I'm a little bit worried about is that that mirror is gonna add a new edge loop right here down the center, and that's gonna make the whole cylinder look a little bit more square. So let's see if we can figure it out without the mirror. Let's go to the top view, and I remember we definitely needed one extra like triangle there. Now remember the circularize option that we have. This is where this might work actually. So I'm just gonna grab this whole thing, and I'm gonna say edit mesh circularize. You can see that that's a perfect circle now, and it actually is following the form very nicely. I just think it's a little bit too big, so I'm just gonna make it smaller. And yeah, that seems to be working. Let's grab the cap. I'm gonna freeze transformations and then just move it. Okay, yeah, so we have a couple of issues here, but that's actually working very nicely. So it's a matter of just moving some of these vertex like out. Like we want to hide them on the border of the actual like cylinder here. Like this. I'm pressing number 3 here to make sure that when we smooth, these things are hidden. If we see a little bump or a little something here and there, I don't think that's gonna be that much of an issue. Not the cleanest way to do it. We would need to have like way more geometry on the other one to really make this thing work. But yeah, like that works. As you can see, that little bump that you see there, I'm not worried about that because we're gonna be hiding that with a little bit of textures and stuff. And if you want to be like really perfectionist here, just like making sure that everything is following the area. And again, this is just only because we want to do this effect where we see through the element. But see that little, again, those little bumps and those little elements, it looks like someone actually like hammered this thing and welded it together. So I actually like when things look that way. You should always, of course, ask the client and everyone if they agree with you. But as long as the pinch or the movement or the element does not look like super weird, you're gonna be fine. The other thing you of course want to make sure that you don't have is hang-ons. So let's triangulate a little bit here. Now, some of you have been mentioning that Blender has better tools for hard surface. I totally believe you. I'm starting to learn Blender myself, and I'm in the basics right now, but hopefully I'll get to that modeling. And one thing that I've realized is if I find out that modeling in Blender is way easier, I might just switch to modeling in Blender. However, I have 10 years of experience in Maya, so right now I can't do the switch as fast as I would like to, because if a client needs something, I'm not gonna waste their time for me learning Blender when I can do something here inside of Maya, right? So that's something you also need to consider. Like, it doesn't really matter, or there might be tools out there that are better suited for certain things that you're doing in Maya or in ZBrush or whatever. But if you're just faster in the other one and you can deliver the work, in this industry, the thing that people value the most is time efficiency and quality on the delivery. So if your delivery is good, then you're perfectly fine. Here I'm trying to see if we can. Now let's keep it like that because I don't wanna mess up the geometry anymore. So yeah, there we go. One thing I might want to do is just extrude this thing in, just to create like a little bit of a lip there. That way, it looks a little bit more believable that this thing is just like an insertion there. Yeah, that looks a little bit better. There's that weird, I don't like this pinch right there that I'm seeing. And the reason we're seeing this pinch is because there's probably like two vertices that are really close together. So just like moving them around like that one. Let's just move it a little bit like that. That should alleviate a little bit of the pressure there. And there you go. A little bit of a, I call it a Mexican way, because we tend to find ways to do things that are not super optimal. Let's make this a little bit smaller. Very important that this is centered to the thing here. I'm a little bit worried about this thing right here. It's touching there, so I'm just gonna scale it down a little bit so that we have some free space on that specific area. And there we go. So we're almost at the 30-minute mark. Let's finish this one real quick, and then we'll probably leave the snakes for tomorrow, because again I don't wanna bore you guys with a full hour of content. So if we check this out on this other side, it's actually a little bit simpler. It seems to be another valve like this thing right here, and the one that speaks to me the most is this part right here, which is like just a cylinder. It has this extrusion, and then this to me seems like those like butterfly kind of things that some elements, like mechanical elements, have. This is like a it looks like a very similar to just like cylinder. Actually, it seems like this is floating, and that's why I really think that this guy did this in 3D, because he might have done like a couple of them and then just duplicated them around and missed one there. But yeah, let's just start working on this. I'm gonna work on this vertex right here. So the first piece is this one. Has this sort of like border thing. So we're just gonna add border there, grab this guy, get it in. Oh. About there. Grab all the edges and bevel. Small fraction, 2 segments. There we go. So that's the base. There's like a second one there. So whenever you have that, just duplicate things and reuse them. We did this with the Firefly, remember? So just duplicate, scale them out. This is a principle. I think I've coined this term. I mean, it's not that I coined this term. I didn't invent this, but the way I say it, most of my students remember it, and I call it simplicity out of complexity, which is when you have very simple objects that together create and make up something very, very cool. So here now we have the main like button, which is just, it seems to me just like a cylinder. It's a little bit thinner, like that. It has this sort of like thing going in, so we could model it with a different piece, or we can model it with this piece. It's completely fine. So it's going to offset, and then Control E and bring it down to create that sort of thing. There is another, I mean, this, it kind of looks like the same lips. I'm just going to bring this thing lower like this. Bevel, of course. Control E, no, sorry, bevel. Is there a shortcut for bevel? I think it's Control B, but it's a little bit far. So there we go. By the way, guys, I'm not sure if you like listening to music when you work. I usually can't work without listening to music, except when I'm recording the premium videos, because on those ones I really need to concentrate to not mess things up. But I recommend this, guys. You guys know I'm a huge fan of Critical Role. So they have this like lo-fi kind of style. It's like an hour-long video. It's very cool, very, very chill, very relaxed. I'm a huge nerd for D&D, so you're gonna have to excuse all of the constant references. Now we have this again, this sort of like butterfly thing, but I'm gonna do this thing first. So what I mean by this, let me see if I can butterfly screw. It's like this kind of thing, right? Like I feel like it's this kind of element, like that's what I see on the concept on this thing. Not as a V shape, a little bit flatter. So something like this, I would say. That's roughly what I'm seeing there. So let's get it there. Let's go here. I'm gonna start with a sphere. Snap the sphere to the vertex there. Again, just to check the concept. It's a little bit higher than a sphere. like a little bit of an egg-shaped thing, and it has that flat surface. Now we could of course do it from there, but it's no need. Like just create a new shape, and work from there. I would say that that's one of the main things that people miss or get wrong when they're first starting with their modeling. They will try to get or do everything in a single piece. It's just too difficult. So don't do that, because it's gonna be like literally a pain for you. So as you can see, I'm just extruding here, scaling the vertex out, and we get this very nice shape. If we need to be a little bit rounder, we can just add another edge loop there. Bring this thing out. Let me extrude this out. Add another line there. Grab this guys, scale them out. This guys, scale them out as well. And this is gonna give me this sort of like shape. I'm actually gonna move the pivot point down here so that we can snap it a little bit easier there. Might be a little bit too much there. It's a little bit too big, I think. Now, of course, we're gonna benefit quite a bit from having our support edges here and here. This is not as thick. I think it's a little bit thinner. Let's bring it up a little bit. Now, usually things, when they're welded, they have just like a little, like something there. I've never welded something in my life. That's something I want to learn eventually, because I think it's it could be helpful to know. But I do know that they use like a metal and they just like burn it, and you get like a little bit of that metal like just combining with the rest of the elements. So it definitely makes or seems to be going thinner on this extreme part. So I'm gonna make it thinner. There we go. And it kind of goes with the shape of the snakes, right? Like the lamp in general is like a very like soft and round effect or element. So it's good that the shape language that you are using, if you don't know how something looks, you kind of follow the same thing. So this sort of shape, it's kind of like mirroring the shape that we have there with the snakes. Now we also have this other element right here. I'm not sure if it's on the other side. So we need to decide, do we want to just like extrude it from here, or do we add it as a separate piece? I think a separate piece is going to work just fine. So I'm just going to grab this piece right here. I'm going to bevel the whole thing, 2 segments, and that's going to create like this very like nice flat surface. And again, we're just going to like get it there. Seems to be a little bit smaller. A little bit thicker, and here's where adding a little bit of overlap is always good. So this thing right there, like the fact that this is kind of like hanging on the side, that's gonna make it look very, very nice. Now that's it. I do think mine is a little bit like thicker rather than taller, so I'm just gonna combine the whole thing, and I'm just gonna use this element to make it a little bit taller, like this. Probably not as much. And we're gonna use the same trick. We're gonna grab this guy. We're gonna say rigging, constraint, parent constraint, and it's gonna jump to where it's supposed to be. Now we don't need the constraint anymore. We don't need this guy anymore, and we're just gonna scale this down, rotate it so this like flat piece is looking towards us. Move it forward, and of course we're gonna have to scale it to the proper size. Just to be a little bit bigger. And now similar thing to what we did with the first one, we're just gonna move this thing around and get them into position like this. There we go. Perfect. Let's save this real quick. And we're good to go. The only 2 things that we're missing are the snakes, and those we're gonna be using ZBrush to get a better look. We're gonna start with the model here in Maya, and then we're gonna jump into ZBrush. So that's it for today, guys. Make sure to leave a comment, like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you back tomorrow when we continue with the snakes and finish up the modeling process of our character. After that, we're gonna have probably one session to do the full UVs, and then we're gonna do one for texturing, and then one more for rendering. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 more. So that's it, guys. I'll see you back tomorrow. Bye bye.